Hi, I'm Rachel. Welcome to Life on Purpose. I invite you to join in on this journey to live a life of deep meaning and intention. Welcome to this episode of Life on Purpose. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. I am so excited for this conversation with my friend Katie, and I'm excited for you to get to know her better. And so thanks for joining me for this episode. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Katie, and then we're going to get into our conversation. So Katie is 42 years old. She loves to cook and clean and play games and swim and do crafts. I can attest that she is just fun. She's just so fun to be around. She loves to eat around the table with her friends, and her most favorite thing is being the mom to 5 very busy, very interesting, very brilliant children. And also, she is a wife to her husband, Joel, who's also lovely. I'm so glad to know both of them. She has a child who has KBG syndrome and 4 children that they adopted through the foster care system. And she identifies herself as a Christian. And I love this. She's realizing more and more just how much Jesus means to her in her life and how involved he wants to be in her life. So I am so grateful for that, for your introduction that you gave to me. But beyond that, I want to add that when I moved to the country of Ohio, 2.5 years ago, Katie was one of the first people I met. And I just knew I wanted to be her friend. And so gratefully now we can call each other country neighbors because we live within a few miles of each other. We're not right next door to each other, but we are country neighbors. And I love that. I love that fellowship and friendship that I have with you, Katie. And I'm just so grateful that you are willing to share your story and share your heart, because that is a gift to me and to all of us. So I'm grateful to share this time with you.
My pleasure.
Okay, so let's get started with talking more about you and your family.
Okay. What would you like to know? Just
Well,
all of it?
let's start at the beginning.
Okay. So I married my husband 20 years ago. We met at college. Um, when we got married, we felt very, very much like we needed to start our family right away and not wait to do that. So, and I don't think either of us were really in the mood to do that. We were not really in the mood to sacrifice those beginning years of marriage and raise a family. But we both felt very strongly that that was what course we needed to take. So we did, and we got married on February 13th, and we had our first daughter on December 13th. So exactly 10 months after we got married, we gave birth to our oldest daughter, Carolyn.
Now she's your child with
With
I want to say it correctly, KBG syndrome.
yes.
And tell me more about that. Like, did
Okay.
you recognize that at first? What has that kind of been like for you, having a child with that, has different needs, different abilities?
Okay. So she was born early, but not like terribly early, a month early. I mean, that's early. But because of that, like she didn't pass the newborn hearing screening. And so we were on the radar pretty early. I mean, obviously, like at a day old, we knew that there were potential things that weren't the norm. But because she was early, they thought, oh, it could just be because of that. So starting out in the beginning of her life, it started out, I mean, she just was always at the doctor. And at 3 months old, it was determined that she actually did have hearing loss. She was born with a moderate to severe hearing loss, bilateral. So that means both ears. So at 3 months old, she got her first pair of hearing aids. And, but it didn't really like stop there. But because of the hearing loss, we were immediately connected with resources for her. So since she was a tiny little baby, she's had therapies, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, feeding therapies, all these different therapies that have helped her so much. And we always knew that there was more going on than just the hearing loss. But Carolyn is this just incredibly driven and determined individual. So she was 11 years old before we even found out that she had intellectual disability. And I mean, you always knew there was something just a little different. Actually, I always knew there was something like a lot different, but we just couldn't ever like pinpoint it. We did genetic testing and things like that early on, but nothing came back. So let's fast forward to last October 2023, when we finally got the diagnosis of what was going on with Carolyn. And that's when we learned about KBG syndrome. It's very similar to like Down syndrome, where there are things across the board that all people with this syndrome have, but there's such different varying degrees of functioning. So like I'm part of a support group, and some people you barely even know that they have the syndrome. And then you have some people that have seizures and aren't speaking, and Carolyn's kind of in the middle of it all. So she has intellectual disability, hearing loss, poor muscle tone, symphangelism, where like her pinkies and her thumbs, they don't bend, and like her legs are really stiff. She's 4'6", short stature, speech delays, very like you can see the facial features. There's I don't remember what it's called, but something with the nose and the mouth and the eyebrows. She has very bushy eyebrows. We call it the fabulous syndrome because her eyebrows are so amazing. And then like even the way her hair calic is and things like these are all little pieces of this. So getting that diagnosis didn't change anything except for it removed 20 years of guilt that I had done something while pregnant that caused my daughter to have these struggles in life. So, and even though like people told me it's not your fault, and even though I was able to like, my brain was mostly able to believe it, I didn't. So it was really, really wonderful to find out that this was just a genetic mutation. So, yeah, that's Carolyn.
Yeah, she is so talented and loving and caring and giving, always
Yes.
being creative. And she is honestly one of the best dressed people on the planet. She is so detail oriented and
Yes.
she has this amazing job, and I just love her to death. Let's dig a little deeper, if I could, into
Okay.
those feelings you were having as she was young, maybe that guilt and that grief, really.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Preston was born and him having the diagnosis of Down syndrome, knowing that life would look different from our other children. And your situation is a little bit different because she was your oldest, she was your first experience, and that
Yes.
changes things as well. I had other children, and so it was a different experience for me. But I remember
Right.
when Preston was about 6 months old, and I went to a group of other moms of young kiddos, and I said to them, like, when do you stop feeling sad?
Yeah.
Because I was just feeling sad. And she said the most beautiful thing to me that I needed at the time of, this isn't a cold. This isn't something you just get over. This is
Yeah.
something that you just kind of live with sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me more about your experience.
I would say most of the time I just feel either very, 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 very frustrated because while Carolyn is the most delightful human probably that I've ever met, she's also very difficult because she just doesn't regulate her emotions well, and she doesn't understand social things. And she is so social and she loves people so much. So it's tricky. Also, like, she can't drive herself places, so it's all on us. I mean, luckily there are wonderful services out there that help with work and things like that, but socially I'm speaking of. So most of the time I'm just loving her and being just amazed by her, or feeling like super annoyed. But I get these waves of grief, and when they come, it's as if she was born and I just got the diagnosis of hearing loss again. Like, I'm trying to think of some instances. So my second child is 18, and then the next is 16. And so they're passing her up. I mean, my 10-year-old, I would say my 10-year-old and Carolyn are about the same level in most ways. Actually, pretty much always. So that's a really interesting thing, having the younger siblings kind of pass her up in a lot of things. I remember when everybody was graduating from high school, that was really a tough time because what are they going to do after high school? And Carolyn, I mean, she works at a fast food place and she's awesome and she loves it. And her life is so full of meaning, but you don't have. So as a parent, what I have learned is that ultimately the most important thing in life for your children is their happiness and that they feel fulfilled. But I will be fully transparent. And when you are pregnant, you're thinking about all the things they're going to do, all the things they're going to accomplish, their family that they're going to have. You're excited for the grandbabies. I mean, obviously, you're pregnant with your kid. You're not thinking about grandbabies, but you are at the same time. Like, like, you want all these things for your child. And then to find out that, I mean, Carolyn has a boyfriend and she loves him. She has a job and she kicks butt at it. she's so happy. And so I've learned how to just be happy with where she's at. To always, I still think I can always expect more because she always gives us more. But ultimately, I just need to just love her. And I feel like we learned that pretty early on and embraced that. But I mean, I'm learning that every milestone that someone else goes through that she never did. Does that make sense?
Yes. And how are you finding balance within that when you have those waves that come up that are always unexpected? It seems like they hit you
Yes.
at a time, because for me, it'll be something like one of my other children gets invited to something. They get invited to a school dance, right?
Yep.
And Preston is just in a different place and not having some of those same experiences. And so it's just like, oh man, wow, okay, where'd that come from? And so it's almost unexpected. So how do you steady yourself in these
Um,
almost conflicting things of like love and pride and appreciation, and also like that, wow, this is not what I expected? Because I will be completely honest, I expected all my kids to grow up and move away and be on their
yes.
own, right? And be
Yes. I did
totally
not expect to
independent.
have my child live with me forever.
Yes.
I
So
didn't
how do
expect
you
it.
balance that? How do you bring yourself into that okayness?
Um, I let myself cry
Mm.
and I let myself just feel it. Not for hours on end, not for days. Usually it's at night, the kids are in bed, and I mean, my husband is he'll just let me just cry and talk. That's usually what happens. I also am realizing that it's important for me. So I'm going to back up. So you talked about like your other kids getting invited to something. So it's tricky because my girls are all within 2 years of each other. And because of the church that we go to, it's like they all are culturally like with their friends. And then on top of that, we live out in the country. And so these friends are all kind of intertwined. And they all are really wonderful about including Carol. And I feel like they are about Preston too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what's interesting, as I'm saying, they're all wonderful about including her.
Yeah.
It's not just this natural. It's not natural for, well, that's not true. It's natural, but it's not like it's not the same as when they call up my other child and say, hey, let's get together. It's always, yeah, bring Carolyn, like they're inclusive. So now what I was going to say is I've also learned that it's important for me to talk to my teenagers about it, for me to say to them, this is really hard. It's really hard because you do get invited and she doesn't. And as a mom, that hurts, and it's okay and it's normal. And when you're a mom, you'll get that too. And it's okay that you don't have her with you all the time because you also just need to be an individual. But it's okay to have all these complex feelings. And I'm learning that, honestly, you just have to talk about the hard feelings and the messy, the messiness. And because it doesn't do anybody good to pretend it's not there.
Wow. I am just hearing from you that feeling of allowance with whatever it is.
Yes.
So let's also talk about your other kiddos.
Yes.
And how they joined your family of the three of you.
So it was just the three of us for 11 years. We were in a pretty good groove. I always wanted more children. When Carolyn was 3, so I was 24, I was diagnosed with 2 brain aneurysms. Actually, I was diagnosed with 1 brain aneurysm. And when they went in and did brain surgery, they found the other one, which I'm glad I didn't know about the second one because it was really in my brain and it was a lot more risky. And I'm glad I didn't know that till after it was done and I was okay. So because of that, we never felt that me giving birth to the rest of our family was the right way to go. Just danger. And also the truth is I went and saw a high risk specialist and they said, this is our job. This is what we do. We can do this. But I believe in God, and I believe that God was letting me know that if I had more kids through birth, that I wouldn't be around to be their mom. So we opted not to do that. I wanted to adopt a lot sooner. I wanted to adopt probably within the year after my brain surgery, but my husband, we actually were in the process of it. And we were on to the final thing, which was letters of recommendation. And as I asked him to give these to somebody, he of course was just kind, but then he the next day had a letter for me and it said, I almost lost you. I'm not ready to have a whole other thing. I mean, he was getting his doctorate at the time. It was not an easy time for him. So we put that on hold. We moved across the country. We came here to Ohio. During this time, our daughter, Carolyn, she was able to have surgery on her ears where she went from a moderate to severe hearing loss to a mild one in one ear. Just miracles. And I now look at this and I just think this was the time for us to keep helping Carolyn. Because if we had added these 4 kids when I wanted to, Carolyn Kate would not be where she is today. She would not. There's absolutely no way, because adopting 4 kids from the foster system is maybe the craziest thing I've ever done or will do. So we were going to, so fast forward to 2015, we finally, after lots and lots of things, decided it was time to adopt. And we wanted to and felt like we needed to adopt a little five-ish year old boy. So that's the plan. We had been trained and we had been certified to adopt one child. That was the plan. So we started the classes mid-April. We were ready to do foster care / adoption by June. And on September 27th, we got a phone call. And it was my caseworker, and she said, "Don't hate me, but just open your phone and look at the text I sent you." And it was a picture of my 4 youngest kids. And I just knew, oh my gosh, those are my kids. And there was a lot of stuff that was going on at the moment. My parents, a month and a half prior to this, lived on the west in Utah, and they felt inspired, impressed, whatever word you want to use, but they felt like they needed to move to Ohio. So they sold their house and they had moved. And so 2 weeks before this phone call, my mom was living in Ohio, and my dad was getting ready to drive out to move. And we were actually when I got the phone call from my caseworker, I was in the process of like getting plane tickets to go out to drive the cars back with my dad. Which that didn't happen. So during all of this, I show my husband, he is livid, and he's livid because he knows that we're supposed to adopt these kids as well. So then we had to make the decision within a 24-hour period. And this is where my faith really comes into play and really grew. So that was, I could have not made this decision if I hadn't had God involved in it. So we were given the answer, yes, you need to adopt these kids. This is your family. So the next day we called, we said yes. So on September 28th, we got the call. Kids are coming on October 1st. So we had just a few days to prepare. So we traded in my very favorite car and got a van. We went and bought bunk beds. We went in, it was crazy. 2 days of just my friends being the absolute best and staying up with me till 2, 3 in the morning every night, getting ready for 4 children to come. So yeah, 4 children at once. It's like quadruplets with lots of trauma and abuse and neglect. And it was hard.
Wow. What surprised you in that process?
I'm still getting surprised by this. Probably the most surprising thing is you can know that something is going to be you can know something is going to be hard. You can know that something's going to make you tired. You can know that, but I did not. I'm I would just say I'm naturally a very forgiving person and naturally a very just loving person. I really have always had the ability to find the good in people. And so I knew that I was going to be able to love strangers. And I knew that would happen, and I knew it would be hard. But having your teenage daughter who you rocked to sleep and who you nursed and who you bonded with as a little tiny child, when they yell, "I hate you," you know they don't. But when your adopted child, who you've only had in your home for not even a decade, tells you they hate you, they actually do.
Mm.
And what I've learned is they don't hate me because of me. They hate the idea of, it's like my daughter said to me, "I hate you when you're kind to me because my birth mom wasn't. I hate you when you're mean to me or when you discipline me because my birth mom wouldn't be disciplining me. She'd let me do whatever I want." She said, "So unfortunately, I just hate you all the time." And we're definitely overcoming that. But I just don't think I ever realized how complex the emotions of adoption are. I heard a quote once that said that just adoption is wonderful and beautiful as it is, it's also tragic. I wish I could tell you the exact quote, but basically adoption comes because of tragedy. So, and maybe the tragedy isn't as extreme as like with my kids, but even somebody whose birth mom was placing their child for adoption so that they would have a better life, there's still tragedy for that child in the fact that they aren't with their biological birth family. There just is. And so my brain knew all that, but my heart didn't.
I have not had that experience in my life, and so I can't say that I understand exactly what you're feeling, but I see from an outside perspective just the safety you create in allowing for whatever the feelings are, however they come up. So you have obviously created a situation where someone's allowed to say, "This is how I feel and this is why," in a very vulnerable way. And it's okay. It's totally fine to have those confusing and really difficult emotions that come from these bad experiences that they have, that are real. Like, that's their reality. They came from a place that was unsafe, unloving, and now they're in a place that, wow, how could this be? How am I worthy of love from these people? And working through all of that, and knowing that people care about you and you have opportunities. I mean, that's got to be just a lot.
Yeah. On the flip side, this same child who told me the thing about the hating, which I am so proud of them for being able to verbalize that. I mean, it took years to figure out that that's how they felt. And the truth is, ever since they told me this, it's kind of been life-changing for our whole relationship. But on the flip side of it is, this same child wrote me a letter for my birthday and talked about how I was her favorite mom. And she's like, "And I've had many moms, and I can tell you that you are my favorite." So anyway, and I've actually, all my kids that I've adopted have said that to me at one point or another. So that's the good. There's the good along with the hard.
Yes. Oh, that is so good. Thank you for sharing that. That just warms my heart. I want to talk about how you are using these things that are part of your experience that you could see as pretty big trials, pretty big on a daily basis. You're dealing with some stuff. And how have you used those things to help other people?
Oh, thank you for asking. That is probably the so I'm always like, what's my purpose here on this earth? And this probably the last 3-4 months, I'm realizing that my purpose is to be able to mourn with people who are mourning in an intimate way. There's things that are really hard that I haven't gone through, and I'm grateful. I haven't had a husband who has had infidelity. I haven't experienced abuse. I haven't experienced a lot of tragic, horrible things. But I've had my fair share. I mean, I've had health problems. I've had a child with disabilities. I've adopted. That's hard. I've been able to nurture and love and help these children for the last almost decade who have come from a lot of things. My father 2 years ago just unexpectedly died at 65. That was really hard. So I'm just realizing more and more that all of these things that have been hard for me have just prepared me. They've prepared me for the next hard thing, which sucks. That's a gross word. I don't like the word sucks, but it does.
It's real.
It is. So I've noticed that, like, even things in my childhood that happened, like, I've just noticed they build. Like, so this hard thing made me ready for this hard thing, so there's that. And then also I think our job as humans is we're just to connect and love and help each other get through life, because it's hard. It's hard. Everybody goes through hard stuff. And isn't it nice when you have someone who is able to be with you through that? It's like the Winnie the Pooh story where Eeyore's really depressed and he says, "I'm not going to be much fun today." And then I think it's Piglet who says, "Then we'll just sit with you." And I'm grateful for the people that have sat with me. You have sat with me. I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the chance that I have to be able to sit with people through their hard stuff.
So when people are having struggles and you're aware of that, it could make people feel uncomfortable because you don't know what to offer. And so how have you overcome, maybe you don't feel uncomfortable by the mess anymore because you are so skilled at it, but how do you overcome that if you are uncomfortable so that you can connect in that deeper way? I love that you used the word you want to mourn in an intimate way.
Yeah.
And to me, that means you want to do that in a way that makes an impression, that makes someone remember that and really feel something.
Well, it's always uncomfortable. Even if it's my sister, like, it's uncomfortable because we all grieve differently. We all process things differently. We all have different life experiences. So the way we think is different than the next person. So it's going to be uncomfortable. But I think about probably the most fresh thing in my mind right now is when my dad died, how my friends just came in and helped. And I'm sure, so there was one girl so I love Diet Coke, and I love Diet Coke from, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it because this is published.
Oh,
but
you can say it. Tell us where the best Diet Coke is.
I love a McDonald's Diet Coke. It just hits different.
All right.
I just love it. I love it. So this friend knew this, and literally within an hour after my dad died, she showed up at my mom's house with a Diet Coke for me. What a silly thing. And I'm sure it was uncomfortable for her, but I'll never forget that. So when I am thinking about somebody, I just try to think about what would help them to feel loved in that moment. Because that's the first way to help someone with their grief, is to help them feel loved. I think that's probably, that's my opinion. And I think it's right. So it might mean bringing somebody a Diet Coke. It might mean writing somebody a letter. It might mean going and giving somebody a hug. It might be asking somebody to help you with something, because I have friends where I know that they do not like to get, they like to give. Have you ever heard that story about the woman who would, like, if she needed, if she needed just a half a cup of flour and she had it, she'd still have her daughter go over and get the half a cup of flour from the neighbor?
No, tell
And
me.
okay, so essentially the mom would do every time she was cooking something and there was some tiny ingredient like a half a cup of flour or a tablespoon of baking soda or something like that, she'd always send her daughter over to do it. And her daughter said, "Mom, why do you make me do this? We have that in the cupboard." And she said, "Because," let's call the neighbor Cindy, "because Cindy can't afford," I don't remember what it was. "Cindy can't afford eggs. And so she needs to use our eggs, but she needs to feel like she's giving too." I'm probably botching this story,
No,
but
I love
that's
that.
so there's some people that when they're grieving, I ask them to do stuff for me, and that seems counterproductive, but it's not for those individuals.
Wow.
So you have to think about people, think about what they need, think about how they show love, how they feel love, and show the love. And then after that, you can start sitting with them.
When you were saying that, yeah, deep thoughts. When you were saying that, it made me think about how in deep grief, you kind of wonder how life can go on. Like, how can everyone
Yeah.
else just continue? Like, they're just living life like nothing happened. I mean,
Yep.
and I'm stuck back here, and giving someone just something to do, even can I borrow some butter, or can I borrow,
Mm-hmm.
this or whatever. Oh, I have something to offer.
Mm-hmm. I have a
I think
purpose.
that's a beautiful thing. Were you asked to do anything like that as you have experienced times of grieving, either with your children or with your health things or with your dad's passing? Was there a time when you were asked to do something and it gave that feeling to
So,
you?
so because of the faith that I am part of, um, we are very involved in
Mm.
service in our congregations. And so I've naturally had an avenue because I've always had like a job in church. So, so at one point when I was, after I had Carolyn, I was, I was in charge of, excuse me, I was in charge of the young kids at church, and I would have to have lessons and I would have to have songs to do with them and different things. And so um, I was going to church and I was doing these things with the primary little kids, and um, that was just naturally a way for me to get out of myself, get out of the slump, and carry on. When I had brain surgery, I had a job where I was in charge of helping plan activities for the women in my church congregation. And like I actually remember just before my brain surgery, we had a party where we were having pizza and root beer and whatever. And someone was like, "Well, why are you here?" And I was like, "Because I had a job to do. I had to get this party celebrated or put together." And I was grateful for that, because instead of, I mean, I couldn't physically do a lot, but I could sit there and say, "Okay, put this table up, put this table up." I could, anyway, after I adopted the kids, I was at church doing stuff. I don't remember what it was. But just because of that organization in place, I have always had something to do to help. And something I'm realizing more and more is, as a kid, I thought, why do my parents want to be part of this religion where they have to do so much. But what I'm realizing is it's because of the doing that I've been okay during all the hard things. Because I just, if you're thinking about other people, you cannot simultaneously, well, no, you can, but it's pretty darn hard to be sad if you are smiling, and you might still feel sad, but if you're smiling and throwing a party, like, you might not want to be there and it might be hard, but you're still doing it. The hardest thing was after my dad died. That was a grief unlike anything I had ever experienced, because all the other things that I've grieved over, they weren't just, well, they were though. Like my kid's future, the way I saw it, it was gone forever. Maybe what was hard about my dad dying was he was the guy that I always went and talked to about what I was sad about. And so now it was like, oh my goodness, who do I talk to about this? Because he's gone. But after he died, I was in charge of singing with the kids at church. And that actually was probably what healed me the most, was just singing faithful songs and feeling close to my dad because of that. So yeah, I've been asked to do things during all of the hard things, and I've been grateful for it.
Wow. That's awesome. Beautiful. What are you doing right now in your life? This is what I ask all of my people on this podcast about your life on purpose, because you talked about that, about wondering, oh, what is my purpose here? And that's what I try to talk about. I love that.
Yeah.
So, what are you doing right now in your life today to live your life on purpose?
Well, I think what I'm finally doing is I'm doing the stuff that I want to do without feeling guilty about the stuff that I think I should do. For a long time, I felt really guilty that guilty is probably not right. I felt really like I wasn't doing my best because I didn't finish. I have an associate's degree and I am almost done with a bachelor's degree, but I was in a program that I was working towards my master's, so I never got the master's, which means I never got my bachelor's. And I spent years thinking I should be in school. I should be finishing that. I should do that. But I didn't want to. And I finally am now to this point where it's like, I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to feel badly about that. I have this desire to be a substitute teacher, but it's not the biggest desire I have right now. I thought it was. And so there were a few months where I was feeling really badly, like, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing this? But it's because I don't really want to do it right now. So what I'm figuring out is right now, what I want to do is I want to be a good mom. I want to be a good wife, and I want to be a good friend. And that is all that I really, and I want to be a good sister and a daughter, which I feel like that's a good friend. I just want to be, I want to be a good person to the people that need me. And I remember one time telling my friend, I was like, I don't sew. I mean, like I know how to, but I don't do that for fun. I don't enjoy running. I don't enjoy quilting. I don't enjoy doing all these things that I feel like I should be doing. And she said, you do people, Katie, you do people. And I think that for the first time in my life, the last year, I've embraced that. Right? I probably more like this last 6 months, I've embraced that I do people. That's what I do. That's what I like. That's what I care about. So I'm going to have people here. I'm going to make sure that I'm playing games with my kids, that I'm connecting with them, that my husband is, I am realizing also how sacred my relationship with my husband is, and how important that relationship is, and that my kids are watching, and I want them to have a good relationship and a good marriage. So I would actually probably say that my main focus right now is just my marriage, my kids, people.
That's a beautiful purpose. That's an amazing purpose. And I can just share that you do gather people together for exciting things and for special things. And it's lovely to be part of that and be able to see that in action. So thank you for letting me be part of your group that gets to see that and see how you really you get people and you want to help them to feel special. And that I love that you're talking about focusing on that rather than those limiting thoughts of, well, you should, because those come from somewhere else. They are not really you, but we all have them just as humans. You know, they're just there. And I love that you are questioning those and like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Maybe I changed my mind. I'm allowed to do that. So taking your power.
Yeah. It's that whole allowing thing that you said earlier. I've never thought about that, but allowing feelings, allowing opinions and things to change, like just allowing yourself to realize that you're going to be different now than you are going to be in 10 years. I mean, I think at my core, I'm the same person as I was in my 20s. Sometimes I think I'm still in my 20s. But there's no way I'm the same. And I wouldn't want to be. Not that there was anything wrong with 20-year-old Katie, but I've had too many experiences that it doesn't make sense to even think for a minute that I'd be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your purpose in being the best in your relationships and the best you, bringing light to this world the way you do and light to your friends. And I am so grateful for this conversation because I think everyone should know Katie in their life. She is just so delightful. And I am grateful to be able to give you a little window into just her heart. You've only gotten to see a little preview.
My ramblings.
She's
my
amazing.
ramblings.
I love this conversation, and I'm so grateful to you, Katie, for just your openness and sharing your heart and your stories with us. I love you. Mwah.
I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are ready to live your life with greater purpose and intention, check out my free Power of Vision workshop, where you'll uncover your life dream, eliminate doubt, and move forward toward your goals with confidence. Get instant access with the provided link. Your life is too precious to live just by chance or by default. I want you to live your life on purpose. I will see you next time.